Hello everyone. I welcome all of you to the 18th session of the course Energy Law. In today's session, we will discuss selected energy related disputes in the World Trade Organization. Let us quickly recap what we have covered in the previous session. In the previous session, we examined regional integration in the energy sector. We started by examining the forms of regional energy integration, followed by the drivers of integration. Then we examined the role of trade agreements in energy governance, followed by a few specific examples of regional integration. In the later part, we examined the energy transition and regional pathways. In today's session, we will discuss selected energy related disputes in the World Trade Organization. The cases are Canada Renewable Energy and Canada Feed-in Tariff, EU anti-dumping duties on biodiesel, Russia measures concerning traffic in transit, India solar cells and modules, EU measures concerning palm oil based biofuels, and the recent consultation request brought by China based on India's production-linked incentives scheme. The intersection of energy policy and international trade law has emerged as a critical frontier in global governance. While the WTO was not originally designed as an energy-focused institution, its rules and dispute settlement system increasingly shape how states regulate energy markets, subsidize low carbon industries, secure supply chains, and pursue climate and industrial policy objectives. Early WTO jurisprudence dealt primarily with fossil fuel trade, transit rights, and traditional market access issues, but the contemporary landscape is far more complex. Today, disputes center on renewable energy subsidies, local content requirements, biofuel sustainability standards, national security justifications, and climate-aligned trade measures. As countries deploy green industrial strategies, ranging from solar and wind incentives to hydrogen, batteries, and critical mineral policies, the WTO dispute system serves as a key forum for clarifying the balance between climate policy space and trade disciplines. Understanding how panels and the appellate body have approached this dispute offers valuable insights into the evolving global architecture governing the energy transition. Let us examine the Canada Renewable Energy and the Canada Feed-in Tariff cases, DS 412 and DS 426. The dispute concerned Canada's introduction of Feed-in Tariff program under the Green Energy Act of 2009. The program aimed at accelerating the transition away from coal, stimulating renewable energy deployment, and supporting domestic manufacturing. The program guaranteed above market purchase prices for electricity generated from renewable sources, primarily wind and solar. To access these long-term contracts, developers were required to source a specified percentage of equipment and components from Ontario suppliers. So it linked energy policy with local industrial development. The complainants argued that the local content requirements embedded in the feed-in tariff program discriminated against foreign producers of renewable energy equipment. Japan and the European Union claimed that the benefits associated with the local content requirements violated core WTO non-discrimination disciplines and investment-related trade rules. The key legal challenge was whether Canada's feed-in tariff scheme, a legitimate renewable energy support measure, or whether the local content conditions amount to protectionist industrial policy. The WTO panel and the appellate body found that Canada's local content requirements breached GATT Article 3, national treatment, by favoring domestic over foreign renewable energy components. It also violated the TRIPS agreement, which prohibits investment measures linked to local sourcing. Notably, in this case, the WTO recognized certain aspects of renewable energy procurement as potentially falling within government procurement exceptions. However, this defense ultimately failed due to program design. The ruling confirmed that the WTO members can pursue renewable energy deployment and long-term power purchase agreements, but cannot condition support on local manufacturing. Now let us examine the two cases against the European Union regarding anti-dumping duties on biodiesel, DS 473 and DS 480. The dispute concerned the European Union's introduction of anti-dumping duties on biodiesel imported from Argentina and Indonesia. The European Union argued that producers benefited from artificially low domestic feedstock prices, soybean oil in Argentina and palm oil in Indonesia, driven by export taxes and differential export policies. The European Union claimed that these policies distorted market prices and gave foreign producers an unfair cost advantage in the European biodiesel market. Notably, this occurred alongside broader EU renewable energy goals and fuel mix diversification strategies under the Renewable Energy Directive, as the European Union sought to promote biofuels while addressing sustainability and market fairness. The core issue concerned the method used by the European Union to calculate the dumping margins. Instead of relying on the exporter's own domestic prices, the European Union adjusted cost on the assumption that domestic raw material prices were artificially low due to government policies. Argentina and Indonesia argued that this price adjustment methodology had no basis in the WTO anti-dumping agreement and unfairly penalized their biofuel industries. It was found that the European Union's cost adjustment methodology was inconsistent with the anti-dumping law. The ruling clarified that trade defense tools cannot be stretched to address perceived distortions in renewable energy feedstock markets unless permitted by the WTO law. The dispute is very significant as many developing countries use export taxes and price policies to support resource-based industrialization. The ruling clarified that such policies do not automatically justify anti-dumping penalties. Now let us examine Russia measures concerning traffic in transit. DS 512. Following the 2014 Crimea crisis and escalating geopolitical situations, Russia imposed restrictions on the transit of Ukrainian goods through its territory to Central Asia and Mongolia. While the dispute covered many product categories, it had critical implications for energy flows and transit governance, given Ukraine's long-standing role as a major gas transit corridor linking Russian gas supply with European markets. Ukraine argued that Russia's restrictions on transit of goods, including energy-related products and industrial materials, violated GATT Article 5, freedom of transit, by impeding access to exporting markets. Russia countered that the measures were justified as part of national security actions taken during an emergency in international relations. Russia successfully invoked Article 21, the national security exception. It underscores how energy choke points, gas corridors, pipeline routes, cross-border transit can become embedded in national security claims. The panel made the first authoritative interpretation of national security exception under the WTO law. The panel held that countries have wide discretion to define national security concerns. However, invocation must be connected to a genuine emergency in international relations, not mere economic tension. The ruling became foundational for understanding how pipeline transit, sanctions and energy security are treated under the World Trade Law. The Russia measures concerning traffic in transit case reshaped the landscape of energy, trade and security law. It confirmed that while WTO disciplines govern transit obligation, states can justify restrictive measures during severe geopolitical crisis, opening a new legal and political chapter in the governance of energy corridors and sanction regimes. Now let us examine India Solar Cells and Modules case. DS 456. India's National Solar Mission, launched in 2010, sought to rapidly scale solar energy capacity, reduce dependence on imported fossil fuels, and develop a domestic solar manufacturing ecosystem. To qualify for certain government-backed power purchase agreements under the National Solar Mission, developers were required to use domestically manufactured solar cells and modules. The United States challenged these domestic content requirements, arguing that they discriminated against foreign solar manufacturers. India justified these measures as necessary for energy security, supporting emerging clean energy technologies, and advancing sustainable development and climate goals. The core dispute centered on whether India could prioritize domestic producers in renewable energy procurement programs without breaching WTO non-discrimination rules. Key legal questions included: do clean energy industrial policy qualify for special treatment under trade rules? And secondly, can climate and development objectives justify deviations from national treatment principles? The panel and the appellate body found that the domestic content requirement violated GATT Article 3, national treatment, and the TRIMS agreement. The ruling reaffirmed that local content rules are prohibited even when tied to renewable energy goals. India argued that developing economies need policy space to build clean tech industries. However, WTO did not accommodate this rationale. This case sparked discussions on whether the WTO framework constrains strategic green manufacturing and whether reforms are needed to support just transitions. This case illustrates a critical challenge for developing states: how to balance rapid renewable deployment with domestic value chain development within the restrictive WTO subsidy and procurement rules. Now let us examine the two cases, DS 593 and DS 600, based on EU's measures concerning palm oil based biofuels. Both Indonesia and Malaysia, major palm oil producers, challenged the European Union's renewable energy policies under the Renewable Energy Directive 2 and related regulations, which classify palm oil based biofuels as high indirect land use change risk and mandate their progressive phase out by 2030. These measures also set strict sustainability and greenhouse gas reduction criteria. The complainants argued that the European Union sustainability rules and feedstock classifications discriminated against palm oil in favor of European crops like rapeseed and sunflower, undermining their energy export sectors under the guise of climate policy. Key issues include EU restrictions and phase out of palm oil based biofuel for renewable energy targets, certification and traceability schemes disadvantaging external producers, and national level implementing measures, notably in France and Lithuania, impacting market access. Indonesia and Malaysia claimed violations of GATT Articles 1, Most Favored Nation treatment, 3, national treatment, 11, import restrictions, and 10, administration of regulations. They also claimed violations of TBT agreement and subsidies and countervailing measures agreement. The European Union argued that the measures are grounded in scientific evidence on deforestation and ILUC risk. They also argued that the policy aligned with Paris Agreement and climate change objectives and promoted sustainable renewable energy transition, and environmental integrity. It was found that the measures violated GATT Articles 1 and 3 since the measures offered less favorable treatment to imported palm oil based biofuels. The measures also violated Article 2.1 of TBT agreement due to procedural design flaws such as delays in reviewing scientific data and certifying low ILUC risk status, which resulted in arbitrary or unjustifiable discrimination. The disputes confirm that members may pursue climate and environmental policies but must maintain non-discrimination, transparency, and procedural fairness. The palm oil disputes mark a landmark moment in WTO jurisprudence at the nexus of climate policy, trade law, and energy transition strategy. They underscore that while WTO members can regulate biofuels for sustainability, such measures must be designed and applied fairly, avoiding disguised protectionism and ensuring due process for exporters. Now let us examine the dispute between China and India regarding India's production-linked incentive scheme. India's production-linked incentive scheme for electric vehicles, advanced chemistry cell batteries, and auto components were challenged by China. The complaint alleges that India's incentives discriminate against imports, especially Chinese goods, by conditioning benefits on domestic content, local production, or preferential access for domestic manufacturers. Specific issues reported include incentives tied to incremental sales of domestic manufactured goods, eligibility criteria favoring domestic production or Indian headquartered manufacturers either directly or indirectly, and restrictions on Chinese firms' effective participation in the PLI scheme for strategic clean tech sectors. The dispute highlights industrial policy trade law nexus in the energy transition, that the states want to build domestic value chains in electric vehicles, batteries, or clean tech, while the WTO rules constrain domestic content preferences or discriminatory subsidies. The dispute signals a test case for how WTO disciplines apply to green industrial incentives as opposed to traditional manufacturing subsidies, and whether special transition space for emerging economies is recognized. China has requested consultations with India. Processes for panel formation may follow if consultations fail. Let us conclude our discussion. The key takeaways are: climate policy is permissible under WTO rules when designed transparently and without discrimination. Renewable support tools such as feed-in tariffs or sustainability standards must avoid local content requirements. WTO case law increasingly evaluates energy transition tools. Procedural fairness, non-arbitrariness, and evidence-based criteria are critical to defending green measures. DS600 adds a new layer, which is that of scientific justification and review processes for climate-related technical regulation. Let's see what's coming up. The next session will explore new frontiers in trade and energy governance, focusing on evolving trade rules, clean energy supply chains, and emerging regulatory pathways for a low carbon global economy. Thank you.